Hey, well, I guess I'll hop in here right now. Hey, it's Mornings with James. Took a little bit of a break for a bit, and just getting back into things right now. Hey, hope your Tuesday's off to a great start. Here's what's going on this morning. We've got a special guest coming in just a bit from Project Connect, and we'll be talking about their major fundraiser that's happening in just a bit here. What have I been up to? Well, you know what? I've been wandering around doing some really cool things, back on the road touring. My hypnotist J.R. Matthews shows have been going great, been having a ton of fun with that, and spreading the word about keto and about healthy living and healthy focus. So that's basically what we've been talking about. And, you know, for those of you that follow along with the show over the last little while, that is what the show was really all about. It was about healthy focus, about getting your brain going, about setting goals and doing really cool, fun things. Now, you know, a lot of times we talk about setting goals and working towards them. One of the biggest challenges that we have is that these goals that we set are, they're just not big enough. You have to have a goal that is really, it inspires you. It's really amazing. It's something that you can really have fun with. And I think one of the biggest things is that sometimes we set these goals, we maybe, think, well, let's lose a little bit of weight. Okay, so you got a weight loss goal. Or let's make a healthy change. Okay, what is that healthy change? And in the process of going towards, to move forward to achieve it, you find yourself actually getting lost along the way, or maybe losing faith in yourself. What is actually going on there? Well, one of the things may be that goal that you set wasn't really true to your heart. So, and interesting thing too, when we set a weight loss goal, here's the funny thing about it. We can do so many things along the lines of achieving that goal, but really, what is that weight loss goal? Okay, now, first of all, I'm going to point out a couple of things. When we go to set a weight loss goal, here's one of the biggest challenges. Well, first of all, we don't like to lose anything. So here you are setting a weight loss goal, and your body doesn't like to lose weight. And so when you're telling yourself you're gonna lose all this weight or slim down or whatever, then your body immediately is going to say, well, wait a minute, we need this. We're not going to, go out and lose this weight. So think of it more along the lines of weight release. And I think my guest is here. So come on in. Yep, keep coming in. Come in next door. That's a wonderful thing about live TV. You can just welcome people in. Come on, have a seat over here.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, no worries. So,
Aileen,
James, how are you?
Not bad. Wait, not bad.
Hey, that's okay. And the funny thing about it is we're live right now, so I'm going to put you on the spot cameras right there. Aileen from McMahon, and you've got a special program going on. First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you have.
What we have. All right. Well, I'm McMahon. I'm Aileen. I am the program supervisor of Youth Hub at McMahon, which is our centralized intake for youth who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And right now we are getting ready for our big Project Connect event, which is a biannual event that we host. We've been hosting for 12 years, I think, now. Yeah. And it happens in March and November. This coming one is November 24th, 10 till 3 at LSCO. And now we're just gearing up because we're in the final 3 weeks of that.
So Project Connect, what ultimately do you want to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the wording right there, Project Connect. So we want to connect, but what is the goal?
The goal. Yes.
What is the goal?
A good question. So Project Connect brings together 60-ish service helping agencies in the community that targets low-income or homeless individuals, basically our vulnerable population in Lethbridge, in an attempt to get them connected to services in a one-stop shop. And so they're able to access things like emergent health care, so nursing care, foot care, haircuts, tax assistance, pictures for ID, that kind of thing. So a very immediate need type services that they're able to connect to. And then follow-up services. So it's a very preventative service fair mission where we're hoping that we can get these people connected to services before things get too severe or extreme.
Yeah. Winter's right around the corner. The weather is super nice right now. But I think, one of the biggest challenges, when we talk about McMahon, so what does McMahon do? Outline that for me. I know we always have to have this conversation when we get on the air about this stuff, because I think, McMahon does a lot of great work in the community, and I certainly enjoyed participating in the McMahon float during Whoop Up Days. It's always great to spread the word there. But, really, as a service provider, what does McMahon do? And then just build that connection for us.
Yeah, so McMahon has a lot of, I was going to try and number the amount of programs, but we have a lot of different programs that we have.
There are 8 main programs.
Yeah, I was going to say something, I was like 6 or 8. So we have 2 youth housing first teams. One's a transition to independence team, or TIP team, which works with youth who have CFS status, Child and Family Services status. Then we have our youth outreach team, who work with youth from 18 to 24 who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. Yep. Then we have our Thrive Adult Housing First team, which works with our chronic and episodically homeless adult population over the age of 25. We have an FASD lifespan program that works with people through transitioning through different life periods with FASD and their families, and supporting that. Those are our main ones. Just trying to think. I'm probably forgetting some.
And then there's some of the programs like the job placement programs.
Mm-hmm. So that's more through Fifth on Fifth. So we share an office with Fifth on Fifth, and Fifth on Fifth does a lot of the job placements, like Fly and Life Impact and stuff like that. Through our housing teams, we'll often help people get connected to employment opportunities or employment training, that kind of thing. But we're largely focused on housing.
Yeah. Okay. So, kind of an interesting thing now. You talk about this outreach and connecting, and I know when you guys have had events in the past, there have been a large number of not only organizations, but you talk about 60 groups getting together for this one. I've had various people on the show in the past, and we talk about different numbers. So, for example, some of the numbers we might talk about, for example, the homeless population in Lethbridge is around 230.
Yep.
Right? The Lethbridge Housing supports about 2,500 people. And then if we talk to you guys about the number you're dealing with, what number will you deal with at your event coming up in November?
Mm-hmm. So November is our biggest event because it's winter, and we help provide some of those winter essentials. So we typically see between 400 and 500 people at this one-day event.
The one-day event. And what day is that again?
November 24th.
At the LSCO?
At the LSCO from 10 till 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 300 to 400 people, and you are basically connecting with the people that can provide clothing and information, photo ID, things like that. Mm-hmm. Now, when I'm trying to think of the name of it, you guys were participating in it, and I was there with the Kinsmen, and it happened in August, and it was it's
Ready, Set, Go.
Ready, Set, Go. Yeah, and because there's all these different names out there,
yes.
And we look at, for example, as a member of the Lethbridge Kinsmen, we, put in about $28,000 for footwear.
Okay.
And that's what we did for Ready, Set, Go this year. Now that's up $8,000 from last year.
That's amazing.
And that's for, and basically we shoe probably, I know it's a strange way of saying it, but we provide footwear for about, I'm going to say 1,200 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's where that need is in the community.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of money are we talking about for an event like this?
Substantial. To put an event like this on, we're in partnership with the city, and the city does help provide a good chunk of the funding. But we run a budget of about $16,000 to run this event. And I mean, a lot of that goes towards every participant that comes in gets a free lunch. a hot lunch and a bagged lunch, and we provide winter coats, and we're trying to do footwear for the winter, and hats and coats and scarves and all that kind of stuff. And so when you have 60 agencies come together, it's super awesome because you are able to pull from those resources, but you still have a substantial amount of coordination and costs that go along with that. And so it adds up very quickly.
Yeah,
sure.
I bet. Now, how would those in need, how would they connect with your group to even know about this event? Is it hands-on? Are you working through agencies like the Salvation Army, through Streets Alive? What does that process look like?
Kind of all of the above. So we'll have invitation postcards that will be going out next week, and they'll go out to all of the service agencies that we're connected with in the community. We have a Project Connect planning committee that's representative of about 12 different agencies, and so they'll take them and spread them to their networks as well. We're in partnership with the Salvation Army. We will be connected with Streets Alive as well. We have a huge social media presence as well, but also word of mouth is huge. Project Connect is very well established in this community and very well known, and participants know that it's coming. It's in November. They know that it's coming, so they know to keep their eyes open. And so we are fortunate in that way because we have a very consistent location as well, and so people just know they know to look, and word of mouth spreads very quickly in this town.
I bet. So now, just to kind of digress from that and work into a kind of a fringe area, how much of a role would, say, the supervised consumption site play in, supervised consumption site? Everyone says safe consumption site. How much of it would Jill and her team play in spreading the word? When you start talking about helping those people, how many of those people are affected by addiction?
Absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of the participants that we see come through the door at Project Connect are participants that we work with on an everyday basis through these various agencies. So Arches has a very large presence. They're on the planning committee. They will have, I think they have multiple tables at the event itself, and so through their community work, they'll have the invitation postcards too, and the information available at the supervised consumption site and at their alternative office sites too, and they'll just spread that way. But having those partnerships are integral to making this event a success.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, how is it that the numbers vary so much? So, for example, for Ready, Set, Go, and you guys had a booth there. I remember you, Michelle, and a couple of your people were there. Why is it that we see such a variance? So, for example, Ready, Set, Go, you're talking about 1,200 kids. You're talking about 900 families, essentially. In this particular case, we're talking about 300 to 400.
Typically 400 to 500.
Oh, 400 to 500. Okay.
Yeah. Part of it is location, certainly. Part of it is the target audience. So Ready, Set, Go is very family focused and child focused, which is super important, and typically held on the north side because statistically that's where the need is, right? For Project Connect and targeting the homeless population or the vulnerable population, that's typically in our downtown core. A lot of that is centralized there. And so when you look at the numbers, and we're having 400 to 500 people, but the homeless population is like 230, you can see that the reach is growing. And every time that we have this event, we see different demographics come through. So we're seeing an increase in family access, and we're seeing an increase in our immigration population accessing these services, because these are where the needs are, and this is where people are falling through the cracks. And so this is a really great opportunity for agencies to be able to identify where those gaps in services are and be able to start shifting program focus onto where the need actually is. So it's a really unique opportunity for participants and agencies alike.
Yeah. When you talk about people falling through the cracks, obviously we've got so many different groups and organizations that help in this process many times a year. How does that happen? Like, what does that look like, falling through the cracks?
Yeah, so I mean,
is that on is that on the administration side of things, or is it just the nature of the population that we're talking about?
Part of it's definitely the nature of the population we're dealing with. It's very hard, when somebody doesn't have a home, it's very hard to get connected to somebody. Because they don't have a safe place, and it's hard to keep track of calendars and appointment times and all that kind of stuff. You're so focused on emergency needs that the last thing you're really trying on survival. You're focused on survival.
Yeah.
And the last thing on your mind is, I have an appointment at so-and-so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, I'm trying to figure out where my next meal is coming from. That kind of takes precedence. And so a lot of it is that. It's also, there's so much help in Lethbridge, which is amazing. We have a super awesome, supportive community here. But people don't know how to navigate that because it can get complicated. I mean, McMahon itself has the youth and adult programs, right? And so you come to McMahon and you're like, oh no, you actually need to go to home base because you're over the age of 24. And then people get kind of lost in that shuffle too, because there's that confusion of what service provider provides what service. And so it's trying to make that process simplified by having everybody at one spot, so that way people don't get lost in that shuffle. It's like, oh, you don't fit this mandate? Well, let me take your 2 booths down and introduce you to the person that is going to get you set up, right? And so it's all in the same place, which means people don't have to worry about trying to think of their next appointment or finding the next location or anything of that nature.
Yeah. And so for you guys, I mean, your location is actually quite central, right? But, how, I don't find the right way to kind of ask this question. How do you guys deal with the risk factor? Because, I mean, where you guys are located, I've been down there a few times, stopping in either to present or just speaking with groups there. And there can be some very interesting people in the lobby area, right? How do you guys deal with that? We all talk about compassion and reaching out and connecting, and sometimes it's hard.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it's relationship building, and so those people who are coming through the lobby, a lot of us have relationships with already, and so we don't face a lot of that risk, or we recognize that the risk is there, but we don't feel at risk because we have that rapport, that relationship with them. If we ever feel at risk, we have procedures in place. We have great relationships with the downtown BRZ, and we have CMHA with their diversion outreach team is super helpful. And so we're able to draw on those other community resources to help mitigate that risk. But really, it's all about relationship and making sure that those people feel recognized and acknowledged and included in that conversation. So,
inclusion is a huge thing, right? And I think that's one of the things where I couldn't tell you the number of people I've had on the program where we've been talking about sort of the us and them scenario, right? We talk about the homeless population of 230 people, and then people come back and they say, well, you can't count those people. Well, actually, there are people that do physically count them, and at the same time, you can find encampments, you can do things like that. It's a challenging situation when it comes right down to it. Like being compassionate and still at the same time being connected. I've heard people say, like, for example, with the supervised consumption side, like, oh, I wish those people why don't they just, let them die? People forget that the individuals we're talking about are all somebody's mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter.
Absolutely.
Those people are all connected in some way to other individuals, and nobody was 4 or 5 years old and going like, Fred, I want to grow up and be an addict. I want to grow up and be homeless. I want to grow up and be this person, right? And these are things that just happen along the way. How long have you been in the field for, and what keeps you moving forward? What keeps you wanting to connect?
So I've been in the field, direct homelessness field, I've been in the field for 4 or 5 years. On the fringes, working with people who experience some of these things in frontline capacity, Probably 8 or 9 years. What keeps me going? I mean, I think it's the idea that everybody deserves a basic standard of living and deserves to be treated as a human being. And so it's being able to have those success stories where this person got connected and now they're not on the street. They're not, and it's also those reality stories that keep you going too, where you've worked with somebody for so long and you're really trying to get them housed or get them connected to some service, but the reality is that sometimes people aren't ready to do that, and that's what Housing First is about, meeting people where they're at.
That's an incredible thing, though. When you talk, as a therapist, when I look at it, I know people have to be ready for change, but when you say that, how can somebody not be ready to be in a home?
I know it sounds crazy, maybe, for lack of a better way to put that, but there's a lot that goes into that. So, I mean, when you're homeless, you build a community on the streets. You have a street community that becomes your family. And so when you move somebody from that community into a home, there's a substantial amount of loss and loneliness that goes associated with that. And a lot of people haven't been in a home for so long that it's uncomfortable for them. It's kind of like somebody getting out of an abusive relationship where they have to find a new normal now.
Yeah.
And so
that's a great way of putting it, by the way. Find the new normal.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's part. So a lot of it's like guest management and relearning new habits and routines where people are able to find connection with their community, but not lose the connection to the people that mean so much to them too.
Yeah. I had Rob and James on the program a while back, and we talked about community housing. We talked about Lethbridge Housing, their role, and what they do with the money they have. We talked versus the city and what the city does with the money that they get to manage homelessness. And the phrase transitional housing keeps coming up. Now, you mentioned something along the lines of transitional housing, but we're not talking about the same thing. How much of a benefit would it be for your organization to have true transitional housing, where we can take somebody from homelessness, addiction, and then bring them into the mind state where they can actually be in a home, they can be, for a while supervised, they can dry out, or they can get clean, and then they can move forward from there into a housing situation. How much of a benefit would it be if the city of Lethbridge or some organization established a protocol for transitional housing here? Because we don't have it.
No, well, Streets Alive has a kind of a transitional housing setup. It really is so dependent on the individual.
Okay, I don't want you to talk about anything that you're not 100% sure of. What do you mean Streets Alive has transitional housing?
Of sorts. So
it either is or it isn't, right? Because everybody says Lethbridge doesn't have transitional housing.
I mean, it depends on how you define transitional housing. But in the case of Streets Alive, they do have housing available that they're able to kind of do a step approach where you can dry out and then you have a little bit more of community living, and then you kind of there's a little bit more of a structured approach.
Yeah.
But that's Streets Alive is based on sobriety. Our program is, because we're Housing First, we can't have that as a baseline. We have to meet people where they're at. And so if people, we're all about harm reduction, right? And so it's finding ways to ensure that people are accessing those basic needs and being able to utilize those basic needs in the safest way possible for them. So if they're not ready to give up their addiction, that's fine, but we're going to help you do that safely then. So that's where we get you connected to the supervised consumption site, or things like that. And so having a traditional transitional housing is really, really dependent on the people. And so you'd have to do some substantial studies, and it would have to be targeted, right? And so permanent supportive housing, on the other hand, is something we need here in Lethbridge for sure, and the city is working on that right now. that has been an identified need for quite a while. So it's our population is so diverse here in Lethbridge that to try and identify a specific type of housing that's going to be kind of a fix for so many is very difficult. That doesn't exist. And so we do need more housing options, appropriate housing options here in the city, and we do need more affordable housing, and we do need permanent supportive housing and more houses like the River House program that we have here in the city. All those innovative approaches are things that we need to be looking at expanding it, and the city is looking at that right now, which is amazing. And so through cooperation with all the agencies that they have brought to the table, the city is doing a great job at that.
Yeah.
So it's coming.
Well, that's great. Now, moving forward with Project Connect, if somebody is, for example, is watching this and they say, this is a great organization, this is really what we need more of, how can they help out?
So we have three things happening right now. So we have a donation drive happening for Project Connect on November 9th from 8:30 till 8:30 at McMahon, which is at 435 5th Street South.
The big brown building right on the corner.
Yeah, it's the 5th and 5th building. I can never remember if it's 5th Street or 5th Avenue, but it's the big building.
Actually,
attached to Bread, Milk and Honey.
Yeah, it's actually both. You were on 5th on 5th,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
You're 5th Street and 5th Avenue.
Which is ironic because our mailing address is 435 whatever. So, because I was very confused when I started working there, and I was like, this is not 5th on 5th.
It's because of where the main doors are, because the main doors are in the 400 block, right? Not in the 500 block, because you're on at 5th Avenue and 5th there. You're actually in the 400 block with Bread, Milk, and everything, and TD and all those other facilities, across the street and stuff. So,
yeah, you can't miss us, really. There's lots of signage, and we are attached to Bread, Milk, and Honey. So if you go there, you'll find us. So we'll have that donation drive for.
So what are you looking for?
The donation drive, we're looking for. We have what we call a wish list. So we're looking for winter gear, so hats, scarves, mitts, coats, boots. We're looking for toiletries. Little mini shampoos, conditioners, soap, socks and underwear are huge, so for all ages and genders. Those are kind of our big pushes, feminine hygiene products, that kind of thing, that we will be accepting donations for all day at McMahon from 8:30 to 8:30, and then we're also doing a cookie dough fundraiser at this point in time until November 9th as well, to try and help raise some funds for this event. It's the first time we've done a fundraiser for Project Connect, so we'll see how that goes. But we have all that information available at McMahon or online. And then you can we have some volunteer opportunities. We're getting up there for volunteer saturation, but there's always room for more for the day of on November 24th.
Well, it's great you've got that support.
It's huge. It's amazing. We traditionally run on approximately 60 to 80 volunteers in a day.
Wow.
And it's a long day because although it opens to the public at 10, we all have to be there at 7:30. And so we have volunteers from 7:30 to 4, and they just give her them all.
So it sounds actually like a great opportunity to maybe do some more live interviews and actually really connect McMahon with the community and say, hey, you know what, if you've got, if you're out at the Salvation Army, or if you're out at, the thrift stores, and you happen to come across a bunch of this stuff, and you want to buy it and then bring it over and donate it, that would be a good thing. Or if you're looking through your closet and you're like, well, I've got, here's the thing, if you look at your own clothing, okay, and I'm really bad for this one. We wear 20% of our clothing 80% of the time. If you've got something in there that you haven't worn for 6 months, let it go. So November 9th, after 10 o'clock in the morning at McMahon, that would be like a great time to bring it by and donate it to somebody.
We will gladly accept those donations. Project Connect is we usually connect people with clothing vouchers that day too. So any clothing that you're not particularly connected to at that particular moment, feel free to drop it by. We're in partnership with My City Care, who will also be doing some after Project Connect clothing stuff.
Is that through Victory?
Yeah, and they're in our basement right now, in the 5th on 5th basement.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
so it's super easy to connect with them. And then, so clothing, the day of clothing for Project Connect will largely be the winter gear, because that's our focus.
Yeah.
But everybody will have the opportunity to basically go shopping thereafter in My City Care to get some of those necessary clothes. So,
yeah. Well, this is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate you taking time to drop on by and to share with it. Once again, if people want to connect with Project Connect, where can they reach out? And are you the person that they're going to connect with?
I'm the person this time around. That might not be the same in March, but I'm the person for November. So you can find me at McMahon or online. McMahon has 7 different Facebook profiles, so you just gotta type in McMahon Lethbridge and somebody will connect with you. Otherwise, you can reach me via email or phone. You can just call McMahon 403-328-2488. I think I'm extension 224, maybe. Just call the main office.
We'll have to find the link and actually attach it here below the interview, and afterward we're sharing it all over the place, and people can actually get onto that and actually.
My contact information will be on that, and then it'll be far easier than trying to remember me rattling numbers off at you.
No, it'd be great. So on November the 24th, which I believe is a Saturday.
It is indeed.
At the LSCO.
Yeah.
There's going to be McMahon as well as 60 other organizations as part of Project Connect, all getting together to provide, you think about it. I mean, we are so fortunate. We have so many passionate and compassionate organizations and people in the city, all, just reaching out to connect with those in need. I mean, it's an amazing thing. It's absolutely wonderful.
Lethbridge is amazing for that, and we're known for collaboration, and it's really awesome to be able to visibly see that at least twice a year when you're putting together an event of this magnitude, where you're able to bring together 65 different agencies from all different areas that all have the same goal in mind, right? And it's so uplifting to be a part of that, and to be able to see those connections being made. Yeah,
and within McMahon itself, what's the employee base there? Like all these people that are kind of connecting and doing all these different things from. I mean, I know there are so many different little groups, but you're kind of a small group of people doing an amazing number of things, aren't you?
Yeah, we have, I think our employee base in Lethbridge is approximately 50-ish people, because we also run Parkside and the Loft, which has a team of its own. So somewhere around 50-ish people. But I mean, we don't do it alone. And that's really important, that we're able to do a lot of this work. But, Project Connect, for instance, would never, ever happen if we didn't have that planning committee made up of 12 other agencies. Yeah. And so...
and is the city actively involved in that as well? The city, the bureaucracy or the elected officials?
The bureaucracy assists CSD, the Community and Social Development Department. They assist with a lot of the administration end of things, which is a huge help, because capacity-wise, not-for-profits don't have a lot of capacity to be doing some of these administrative tasks, that they're they're well-oiled machinery, so it's super easy. They've got it all down to a science, and they can just rattle it off for us, and we don't have to worry about that end of things, which is really nice. So it's very helpful.
Yeah. It's very impressive. I wish you the best of success.
Thank you.
Aileen, thank you very much for coming on the program.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great. So you want to connect with Project Connect, basically McMahon Youth Services, go online, mcmahon.ca.
Yep. And then you'll have to choose the South region, but yes.
Yeah. So you can connect with with McMahon and their team and Project Connect coming up November the 24th, and it's going to be taking place at the LSCO. And McMahon is teaming up with 65 other organizations to basically help those in need in the city of Lethbridge. And as you mentioned, Lethbridge is a great community for connecting and for doing all those wonderful things. And you know what? I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time too.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to wander over here and turn off this feed now. They change things around so much, and it's such a wonderful thing.